Welcome in everyone to the Larsonland podcast. I'm your host, Sawyer Hill, and as always, I'm joined by my co-host, Dylan Bradshaw. We come on here every single Wednesday and talk about all things involving the 2021 NASCAR Cup Series champion, Young Money Kyle Larson. Lots to unpack, Dylan, from this week's race at Atlanta for the Cup Series and some other NASCAR news on the side. But first, let's go back to last Wednesday. Kyle Larson, big time win. First race of the year with the All Star Circuit of Champions. $25,000 grand prize there at Lernerville and finally took down Brent Marks. What were your thoughts, Dylan?
Yeah, it was a good race, as you said. Finally took down Brent Marks, so you kind of got that out of the way. But yeah, it just early on pretty much dominated the race. I think he took the lead with 24 to go, but he actually got pretty lucky that race. That caution kind of saved him on that one restart. He actually lost two spots and put him back up there and pretty much just dominated from there with 24 to go. He got a little sideways near the end. Marks kind of cut into his lead a little bit, but yeah, just picked up the win and it was a much needed win. Picked up his second Silver Cup win, so big win for Larson.
Definitely a big time win for Larson. And like you said, that caution really saved him there where, he lost a couple spots on the restart. And actually, I think it was for somebody that hit the restart cone on the front straightaway. You don't see that every single race. But Kyle even admitted in his interview that he kind of got lucky with that one. And, you know, just really happy that Kyle was able to finally break through and take down the hottest driver in all of sprint car racing. I mean, Brent. I mean, it really looked like coming into the night or throughout the night, really, that Brent Marks was kind of going to be the guy to beat. He came out there, set quick time, and sat on the pole for the main event. And Kyle kind of had to charge his way a little bit up from starting sixth. And, you know, Larson just, once he took that lead, never looked back and was definitely a very good race for Kyle.
For sure, the top side looked pretty good. I mean, these past few races we've seen with Kyle, he's obviously a guy that likes to run the top, and top just hasn't been running too good for him. So top ran well for him at Lernerville, which helped his success for the win. But yeah, just overall a solid race, and glad he could take down Brent Marks.
Yeah, and speaking about the Brent Marks thing, I mean, it's how much of a confidence booster do you think this is going to be for Kyle going into this really busy stretch of the year for him? I mean, we got the Kings Royal coming up next week. We'll talk about that, or this week, excuse me. We'll talk about that in a little bit, and then we have races like the Knoxville Nationals that Kyle Larson was just recently confirmed for, and we have the BC 39, and all the other NASCAR stuff. Prairie Dirt Classic coming up too. I mean, like I said, how big of a confidence booster do you think this is? Finally being able to take down the hottest driver in all of sprint car racing.
Oh, it's got to be. It's definitely lifted a weight off his back. He battled with him all throughout Speed Week and those two nights, Grandview, Port Royal. He obviously had issues with the cars, but he finished second to Marks at Lincoln and Hagerstown. So yeah, just huge weight off his shoulders. We're heading into this good stretch of races where he's proven to be good. We have Attica tonight for the Brad Doty Classic. He's coming off a win in Attica in May, so he actually dominated that race in Attica in May. So going into the race tonight, that should be good. And then like you said, we have the four big prize races. We got Kings Royal Week, so hoping for the best there. Um, yeah, just looking forward to it.
Yeah, I mean this schedule is really starting to heat up for Kyle Larson this year. We all know this is kind of the busiest part on the calendar for him, and I really like his chances going into Eldora. I mean, Kyle talked about it in his interview um, after the race there at Lernerville on last Wednesday night. He kind of said, this is kind of a really good warm up for Eldora, and he's really confident with the car that they're bringing there. I mean, they were fast at Port Royal. Kyle alluded to that in his interview as well. How kind of some similarities there between Port Royal and Eldora as far as the track and how the car drives. So I think Kyle's confident going into this week and could be some big time wins on table for Kyle. $100,000 to win on Thursday night with the historical big one making its return, first time since 2003 for that event, and then $175,000 on the line Saturday night for the 39th Kings Royal. Kyle, obviously one of the defending winners. We just talked about that a little bit ago. Tyler Courtney and Kyle Larson co-defending winners this year, but Kyle's definitely going to be, I think, very confident heading into this stretch.
Yeah, definitely. And you mentioned Port Royal. You brought to my attention a little Easter egg earlier. The new Larson merch that dropped, it has a Port Royal and Williams Grove on it marked off. So I mean, I we could expect for Kyle to be at that Port Royal World of Outlaws race coming up at the end of July, as well as the two Williams Grove races. So it's really exciting. He's knocking out a ton of sprint car races this year. I would love to see him back in the late model, but can't complain seeing him in the sprint car.
Yeah, and I mean, it's I know this year the number of total wins for Kyle hasn't been as many so far as we saw last year. I mean, Kyle won 33 races total last year in around 100 starts. He's sitting at 8 wins right now, but as far as sprint car racing goes, I mean he's been pretty good. I mean, right now 15 races total he's ran this year for 3 wins at a 20% win percentage, which I would say is really good when you're competing against the best guys in the country. So, kind of moving on and talking about Atlanta's race from Sunday, we kind of thought maybe this race was going to be rained out. Maybe it was going to be a kind of one that ends up being raced on Monday, but the weather cleared and the cars were able to get out there on the track on Sunday. Qualifying obviously was rained out on Saturday, but lineup was set by the metric, and Kyle Larson started third. Looked very sketch from the beginning. Kyle fell straight to the back. Dylan, I mean, what were your thoughts when you saw that initial start of the race?
Yeah, it was definitely tough. He was making his way up there at the beginning, and then he just completely fell back. He got really loose, and the announcers and the scanners were kind of relaying that there may be some steering issues. I think they said they implemented a new steering box, so there was some adjustments to be made. Elliott actually said that he was having steering issues as well, but we all know that didn't really affect him too much as he dominated. But yeah, as far as Atlanta, for the most part, I think it was pretty similar to the first Atlanta race. I would say like the key takeaway for this Atlanta race was we had less tire issues than the first one. So yeah, the right rears were awful in the first race. But as far as the race goes, I'm still not a big fan of it. I don't like adding this extra super speedway onto the schedule. I'm just more comfortable with having Daytona and Talladega for the two races there apiece. But yeah, not much you can do about it.
Yeah, definitely not our favorite style of racing. I mean, it's so weird to me because this is kind of a thing that we've discussed this multiple times on the podcast and off the podcast as well. But it's like I feel like there's two kinds of NASCAR fans. There's the kind that really love pack racing and really love that style, and there's the kind that just hate it. I mean, I don't think there's really any in between. I know we both hate that kind of racing, and honestly, I will say, a couple of years is fine, and the prestige of the Daytona 500 and the Talladega races and stuff. I mean, it's all good stuff, but you know, I like it in small doses, and I think we've gotten a little bit more than what we wanted this year so far. But you know, as long as it's suiting some other people, hopefully they enjoyed the race. And very popular winner, Chase Elliott, was able to pick up the win.
Yeah, I said a key takeaway from the two races was the less tire issues, but another key takeaway from this race is I couldn't tell if I was watching NASCAR race or a Dawsonville pool room reality show. I mean, it was just ridiculous. I'm all for Chase Elliott when Larson's not in for the win. I root on Hendrick, I root on Elliott, whoever's up there, but I mean, come on, it's just ridiculous of how much stuff they showed. I know it's Elliott's home track, it's exciting. He completely dominated. I mean, he swept the stages. I couldn't believe there at the end how he made his way through. To be honest, they went three wide at the end of the race, and he just made his way through the middle. But yeah, just kind of insane how much NASCAR has been throwing out the chase content.
Yeah, I think NASCAR definitely wants to promote the chase win and kind of I know NASCAR makes more money when a popular driver like that wins. It helps ticket sales and T-shirt sales and all that stuff that NASCAR gets a small percentage of. So I think NASCAR is trying to milk it as much as they can, this Chase Elliott win, and he's been on a really good streak. I mean, there's no I understand it's kind of they've kind of blown it out of proportion a little bit, but I mean, I definitely do not want to, you know, really talk down on it. I mean, Chase Elliott's been on a huge streak of races here where he's done really good. I mean, obviously the week before, Road America didn't pick up the win there, ended up finishing second. But of any driver right now, I mean, do you feel like Chase Elliott is kind of emerging as a championship contender? I mean, he's taken a commanding lead in the points, the regular season points, and the first driver to get 3 wins, Dylan.
Yeah, he's definitely been dominant. I mean, Larson and Elliott both, they've thrown away wins this year. I mean, you can just say Hendrick has thrown away wins this year. Yeah, Elliott's just been super, super quick. Like you say, he's leading points, but I don't know. It seems like it's a year where the points just they don't really matter. I mean, the way it's looking, if he continues his pace, I mean, he'll get what be safe for one race in the playoffs. I mean, just look at Larson's domination last year, and I think it was before the Roval. He had a chance to just completely be eliminated. So I
Right.
mean, it's tough to say. I mean, whether or not it will continue in, um, whether or not teams are giving that extra nudge that are already locked in. They might not be like necessarily trying as hard to beat up the car and try to get that finish because I mean it doesn't really matter at the end of the day with the way the point system is.
Yeah, and I mean, honestly, you're 100% right. I mean, the point system does it makes it so being hot right now doesn't really matter, and we kind of saw that with Kyle last year. He had his streak a little bit before this time of the year where he went on a tear and won, a bunch of races in a row and was just completely dominant. And then there was kind of a stretch again there, even into the beginning of the playoffs, where Kyle wasn't really winning every single race. He was competitive, but those hot streaks don't really matter this time of the season. It really matters when you get into the playoffs, where like last year, Kyle just he went on an absolute tear and won what was it, 3 races in a row there at one point in the playoffs.
Yeah, I think it was 3 or 4. I don't remember exactly, but yeah, there's a lot of guys that are doing well. Chastain being one of them. He's racking up these top five finishes, but as of right now, those top fives are all good. But I think it's almost inevitable at this point. He has some enemies when playoffs come. I think you kind of scratch him off as a championship favorite because I could see him getting dumped soon after his continuous actions week in and week out. I mean he wrecked Truex, which caused Larson to wreck there in Atlanta. Truex was going around the corner, he was a little loose, and Chastain pushed into him and caused a massive wreck. And then he was messing with Almirola a little bit, and then he another Denny situation got into his rear and spun him out. So it just week in and week out, it seems like it's another thing with Chastain. I liked him at the beginning of the season. I liked his aggressiveness, but I mean, there's just like a fine line between being aggressive and just being, stupid about the way you're racing and affecting the people around you.
Yeah, I mean Chastain is definitely he's definitely made a lot of enemies so far this year, and Um, like you said, when it comes time for playoffs, I mean, guys like Hamlin and Truex, and I mean, I know he had problems with Chase Elliott on track too. I'm sure that's not the first thing in Chase's mind this week, but it's like, people remember that stuff and they put it in the memory bank, save it for later, and I definitely think at some point this year it's gonna come back to bite Chastain, and um, it's definitely not gonna come at a very good time for him.
Oh, definitely not. I mean, it could be another situation like we saw last year with the Harvick and Elliott beef. I mean, that went on for a while, and Denny, he's chasing that championship, so there's really no doubt in my mind that he will absolutely run through Chastain if he has to. I mean, he's just gonna get obliterated.
So Kyle Larson brought it home 13th. Obviously, was involved in the one crash that Chastain I would 100% say caused earlier in the race. I think it was a pretty solid finish for all the damage to the car and everything, and the struggles early on. obviously, these races you kind of take all you can get. If you can get a 13th place finish and cross that finish line on the lead lap at the end, in a race like this, these pack races, then that's usually a pretty good day. Obviously, Hendrick Driver picked up the win, so not much to complain about, despite not being our favorite track there at Atlanta. Kind of shift into some other NASCAR news. Big announcement today from Denny Hamlin and 2311 Racing. Tyler Reddick gonna be joining that team starting in 2024. Really big announcement, Dylan. Kind of caught me off guard today. I was not expecting to see that one.
Yeah, that caught me off guard too. I mean, it's first off, it's not good for Richard Childress. You know, they have the two car field with Dylan and Reddick. Reddick has been emerging as, a top talent in NASCAR. He finally picked up that win at recently, and he's locked in for playoffs. And it's just confusing because they're trying to chase a championship, and then you go and sign for another team. So as Childress said on Twitter, they're focused on winning a championship these next few years, and the announcement, could not be at any worse of a time as we're heading into this playoff stretch.
Yeah, I definitely agree with RCR's statement on social media saying that the announcement cannot be at any worse of a time. I mean, obviously, it really seems like a good move for Reddick, like a personal move for him. But with as far as RCR, I mean, like you said, they're going to go compete for a championship this year. Definitely competing for a championship this year, as he's basically locked into the playoffs. I mean, I know we don't know 100% if that's going to lock him in, but um, I feel like an announcement like this is definitely better suited to be at the end of the season. I mean, even if it was before the start of next year, I think that's a more appropriate time for something like this. But big move for Tyler Reddick, nonetheless. He's going to be going to a team that I think is going to put him in a position where he can grow with that team and really put his driving to the test. I mean, we've seen the Toyotas be pretty fast this year, but I think my big takeaway from this move overall is that right now this year there's only five full-time Toyota, or actually, excuse me, six full-time Toyota teams on the grid with the four Joe Gibbs Racing cars and the two 2311 cars. Other than those six, there's no full-time Toyotas, and Chevy has 13 full-time cars on the grid, and Ford has 13 as well. So I think this is kind of a move where Toyota wants to get more cars on the grid with this next gen car, and they want to have some more data points moving forward.
Yeah, speaking about more cars, it's going to be kind of interesting. I wonder if this is means that Kurt Busch could be nearing retirement, or whether or not they decide to field another car and rock Bubba, Kurt, and Reddick. So that would be interesting to see. But they definitely made a huge jump this year with adding Busch. He obviously has that win, and they've both been really fast this year. And the team's just improving. The only thing that's really holding them back from maybe being a deep playoff team is that pit crew. I mean, that pit crew is just brutal. We saw it was kind of funny, I think. Bubba and Bell swapped. I think it was three crew members, and then near the end of the race, Bell actually got a loose wheel, and his wheel came off on pit road. So that just goes to show how bad their crew members have been. I mean, just can't get a break.
Yeah, I definitely think there's going to be some changes coming probably in the off season and training stuff with that team. Definitely they've had the most struggles of anybody this year, but I'm sure Reddick's not really thinking about that right now, but like you said, I mean, this is it's really the big talk about this is the fallout from this situation. I mean, right now, I know a lot of people probably don't, you know, understand. I mean, the NASCAR charter system is very complicated and all the rules and stuff to do with it. But basically, right now, there are 36 teams that pay to be in the NASCAR field, and these 36 charter teams are the teams that they're guaranteed a starting spot in every single race. So right now, 40 cars is the maximum field size. So if there's anything over 40 cars, if there's 41 that show up to a race, those 36 charter teams they're locked in regardless of how they qualify. So it's kind of interesting because right now all 36 charters are taken by a team. So it kind of makes me wonder, like you said, is one of the the 2311 drivers going to get replaced, Bubba or Kurt Busch, or is 2311 going to buy a charter out of another team? It's obviously having a charter is very important, even without the field being above 40 most weeks. Having that charter also benefits a team in terms of money because teams with a charter they get more money of the purse in each race. So if you finish first as a charter team, you make more money than a team that would win a race without a charter. So I don't know what if there is a team that is potentially going to sell their charter. I mean, the ones that kind of come to mind for me is like one of the Rick Ware charters or the number 78 car, the Live Fast Motorsports car. But um, definitely it'll be interesting to see how this situation shakes out there at 2311 and the NASCAR field heading into 2023 and beyond.
Yeah, the big talks with Charter recently. I mean, Junior Motorsports. He's Dale Earnhardt Jr. You know, he's definitely voiced his opinion on fielding a Cup team. And he definitely wants to do it. So that's gonna be interesting to see how that plays out. And you know, I mean, there's guys in Xfinity like Gregson for one. He's been running a few Cup races here and there. I wonder if what seat he's gonna get. Could he potentially join RCR and RCR kind of starts feeling some guys now that they lost Reddick and they only have a one car in Dylan come 2024, or if we're gonna start seeing some more teams coming into play and some of those Xfinity guys, join the new teams.
Yeah, and I think ultimately at the end of the day, this is a good this is good news for NASCAR fans just because it definitely strengthens the field. When you see even so in the case that a team's charter did get bought out, like one of the Rick Ware cars or, the 78 car that BJ McLeod drives a lot, if one of those teams were to get bought out, you're gonna 2311. They're gonna put another competitive car out there in the field, and I think having more competition in the field is a very good thing. I mean, obviously the next gen car has created a lot of competition that we didn't have in previous years, but um, I think it's definitely going to be interesting, and it's gonna strengthen the field. You're not going to have the as many back marker teams, the park it and start or the start it and park it teams that we saw of NASCAR over the past couple of decades.
Yeah, I mean the recent years. I mean, obviously you have the powerhouse teams. Hendrick, Gibbs, Stewart Haas has kind of fallen off a bit. I'm interested to see what they're gonna do because they have Briscoe. Harvick's kind of reaching his end. Almirola said he was gonna retire, but now there's apparently talks that he may come back another year. So there's a team that could end up with just Briscoe, so another one car team. And there's also talks of them with the whole Dodge thing. That's another
Yeah.
whole thing, another potential manufacturer coming back. And I think Stewart Haas would be one of the teams that would go to Dodge. So that would be interesting to see, kind of shake up the manufacturers, like you said, I think you said 13 Fords. So that would take away a good bit. Um, yeah, just interesting to see what the future beholds.
And kind of diving into our last segment of the show today. Speaking of Eric Almirola, you just brought him up. We're heading to a track where Eric Almirola is the defending winner at New Hampshire. Definitely not the best track in terms of laps led and wins for Kyle Larson. Hasn't won a race there, but we were kind of looking at the stats yesterday, Dylan, and Kyle does have some solid finishes there, some second places and some third places. Maybe this week's the week where Kyle picks up a win at New Hampshire.
Yeah, he finished seventh there last year, qualified 10th with Hendrick. And yeah, in his previous years with Ganassi, he had some solid finishes. But I would say New Hampshire's a pretty unique track. I mean, it's a flat 1 mile oval. The corners are a bit tricky. You got to run a certain line. So um, it's definitely a unique track. And sometimes around the corners, you see some beating and banging. Um, it's going to be interesting with the next gen car though, because all these cars are even, and typically in the past in New Hampshire, you kind of had a bump and run type of play style to pass some cars. So with the next gen cars, the passing isn't necessarily the best, and they're all pretty even. So it's going to be interesting to see how these cars are going to run at New Hampshire and how they expect to pass.
Yeah, definitely going to be a big difference from we there's of the 1 mile tracks in the NASCAR circuit. I mean, definitely going to be a lot different, I think, than what we saw at like somewhere like Dover, like with a high banked 1 mile track. But it'll be interesting. These short tracks have kind of been boring races, so hopefully this one's a little more exciting. And one thing that would definitely make it more exciting is if that number 5 car ends up in victory lane at the end of the day. So this is going to be the last race of the 4 race suspension for Cliff Daniels. So last race for Kevin Mendering up on the box for the number 5 car. Hopefully this year. Hopefully Cliff stays on the rest of this stretch all the way through the end of the season. Definitely very beneficial to have Cliff back. So Dylan, if you don't have anything else to talk about, that's pretty much all I have for today's show.
No, that should pretty much sum it up. Everyone, as always, stay in touch with our Twitter. That's where we're most active for all the races. We have a ton of races coming up, as we talked about earlier. We have Attica with the Brad Doty Classic tonight, and then we have the Joker's Wild, the historical big one, the night before, and the King's Royal at Eldora, as well as obviously the NASCAR race. So tons of races in store for Kyle. So just make sure you have post notifications on and keep track with Larsonland.
Absolutely. So thanks again, everybody, for tuning in and listening to the show this week. As always, check out the links in our description for some awesome Kyle Larson Facebook groups. We'll be back again next week to recap all of the racing from New Hampshire and Eldora for the King's Royal and the return of the historical big one. If you're watching this on YouTube, please don't forget to like this video and subscribe. And if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, please follow our podcast so you don't miss a thing. Have a great rest of the week, everyone, and enjoy the on track action over the next week. We will see you in the next episode.